All right, well, it's review day. We are going to be reviewing for our test tomorrow. So remember, our test is on the Louisiana Purchase, made by Thomas Jefferson, bought from France. The leader was Napoleon Napoleon Bonaparte. Just kidding. Napoleon Bonaparte of France. Then we had to send Lewis and Clark to go explore the new land with Sacagawea. They went all the way Pacific Ocean. Not long after, we got in the War of 1812 with Britain. So let's review. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at this study guide. And so I hope you'll save this study guide. You'll be able to look at it several times. If you happen to have a printer at home, you can print it off and study it with your parents. That would be a good idea because your test is tomorrow. I think it's a pretty easy test. If you've paid attention, done the lessons, listen this week as we review, and if you listen to this study guide, you can make a 100 on the test pretty easily, I think. Okay, so let's take a look at these are really the answers to the questions that are going to be on your test. So make sure you know these. The first thing says, President Thomas Jefferson bought Louisiana from the French. So your question is going to ask you what president bought Louisiana from the French. You need to know it was Thomas Jefferson. Secondly, you need to know who the French leader was who sold Louisiana to the U.S. It was Napoleon Bonaparte. So make sure you know that Napoleon Bonaparte was the French leader who sold Louisiana to us, the U.S. Okay, you need to know that the eastern border of the Louisiana Purchase was the Mississippi River, because the United States already went to the Mississippi, so now we went from the Mississippi on westward. So the Mississippi River made the eastern border of the Louisiana Purchase. Mississippi River. Okay, who led that Corps of Discovery to explore Louisiana? It was Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark. You need to know two of the rivers that they explored for the test tomorrow. It was the Missouri River and the Columbia River. Now, they explored a few more, but these are the two that are on the test. Those are the two main rivers they explored. So make sure you know tomorrow that Lewis and Clark explored the Missouri River and the Columbia River. And Lewis and Clark made it all the way. What ocean borders the western United States? They were traveling west. The western United States is bordered by the Pacific Ocean. It's not the Atlantic. The Atlantic Ocean is probably where you go to the beach at Myrtle Beach. That's the Atlantic Ocean. But on the other side of the United States where Lewis and Clark went, that's the Pacific Ocean. Okay? You need to know George Washington became the first president of the United States. Simple enough. You need to know Thomas Jefferson served on Washington's cabinet as the Secretary of State. Remember we did that poster where we drew George Washington and we learned about who was on his cabinet? Yeah, he created the positions of men that would help him as the president. Thomas Jefferson was the Secretary of State. You've got to know these. You just got to memorize it. The Secretary of State was Thomas Jefferson. Washington's Secretary of Treasury was Alexander Hamilton. Okay, got to know those two. The U.S. fought another war. I should say war. It says was. The U.S. fought another war with Britain during the War of 1812. Okay, we fought with Britain during the War of 1812. Not France, not Germany. We fought with Britain. The War of 1812, guess what year it began? 1812. You'll be surprised how many people missed that on the test last year. It's called the War of 1812 because it began in 1812. Simple enough, right? The British burned down the White House in the War of 1812. George Washington agreed with the Federalist view of needing a strong central government. Remember, there were Federalists who wanted a strong government, and there were Anti-Federalists who did not. It was Sacagawea who translated for the Corps of Discovery. After the War of 1812, the United States had more confidence and patriotism and began to think of taking new territory. That was the manifest destiny we read back on Monday. They wanted to go from sea to shining sea, from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Lewis and Clark's team discovered the Rocky Mountains, learned about 200 plants and animals, and drew the first maps of the western United States. So there's three things that they did. And we were reading a text the other day, and it said that uh, that the president and many Americans thought that there might be woolly mammoths and volcanoes and mountains of salt in the Louisiana Purchase area. And then we said, well, I wonder why they thought that. Well, it's because nobody had lived there before 1803. So they didn't know what was there. No Americans lived there. Only the Native Americans were there. So nobody knew what might have been there. Some people even thought there might have been dinosaurs. Now, this is your questions for your test. At the end of your test, you will have a map of the route that Lewis and Clark took to the Pacific Ocean, and you'll have 3 or 4 questions that you'll just answer from that map. So you just have to look at the map to find the answer. So I can't really put that on here, but you can do it. Okay. Now study this. Remember this. These are the answers to your questions on the test tomorrow. So take some time and study this today. In the meantime, I have a link for you to play. Do you think you could have got all the way west if you had to travel a trail and get all the way to the Pacific Ocean? Well, here's a way that you can find out. This is an old game called the Oregon Trail game. And you start in the Mississippi River like Lewis and Clark did, and you travel west. And you have to do all these different things to try to stay alive so that you can make it all the way west. So you can do this today and enjoy playing this old game. I used to play it when I was in school. It's that old. But it's really fun. I think you'll enjoy it. See if you can make it all the way to the Pacific Ocean, all the way to Oregon. Okay? Study for your test. Be ready to take your test tomorrow. Enjoy playing Oregon Trail. We'll see you later.